section.
Yeah, so there was one that was 30, the second one was 30,
The first one was 53.
3.
And this one's 34.
Yeah.
Good.
Wow.
That was great. You know, and somehow it's funny, the fact that I know that it's recording, it's a stimulus to conversation. I thought it would make me camera shy or something. It was the opposite. It's a stimulation.
It is stimulating because there's a purpose, there's an intention to our conversing, and that doesn't always need to be there. But honestly, often when we're talking and the Holy Spirit becomes present in our communion, like I want everybody to feed on this. I want everyone to experience and hear these different thoughts. And to me, it's the work of a lifetime, my adult lifetime especially, has been, because as you know, I rejected Catholicism and Christianity and Jesus and all these things for so long because I equated it with suffering and shame and crucifixion, and I couldn't win in the context of this. And so I was like, well, why am I going to stick around here? Because I've lost, I'm sinful before birth, like I have to prove myself over and over and can never win this game. So why would I want to live in this? But there again, like the possibility of distortion and bastardization of something perfectly good, like a banquet, a joyful banquet, can get twisted and turn into something perverse. And I'm not saying anyone's to blame for that, but that was so. And yet, like you, the love of the holy word is always in me. So it created a deep schism within myself.
And I think that your very rejection of Catholicism and all that showed that you were aware that the choice had to be made. It had to be total affirmation or total rejection. You couldn't become a conventional Catholic in the same way that you can't become a conventional anything. You know what I mean? So, and then your exploration of the opposite extreme, which led you into a kind of despair, then makes you seek for another possibility, which is somehow to honor both what is offered in the Catholic tradition and the needs of your soul. Somehow those two things need to come together so that there's a harmony within you. And I think this is what happens in the parable. The parable itself, the refusal of joy, is not the end of the parable. Jesus is telling the parable in time as a middle movement. First there's an invitation of the king. Then there's a refusal. But then there's the wedding feast anyway, and he's telling the parable to change people's minds. So Act 3 is outside of the book. It's outside of the words. You know what I mean? Act 3 is hopefully people will see it a different way and want to go to the wedding, have their souls changed by the words of the parable.
It's up to you to create the happy ending. The parable isn't going to force you to it.
That's correct. By changing your heart. By saying what an ass I've been not to want to go to that banquet.
And that messy middle is our human life.
Exactly.
Well, that's good to hear. And I like what you said. Parables are therapeutic. That it's not just a happy story with a happy ending. Sometimes there's a happy ending.
Or a rough story with a rough ending.
Right.
No, sometimes the rough ending is exactly the fire, the bitter medicine that needs to be taken to be healed.
To awaken.
Yeah.
The poison is...
To be healed from the negativity and the cynicism and the, tell me something new kind of thing, that jaded spiritual attitude of I've heard all that. And I mean, I wish that somebody who abandoned Catholicism became a real Buddhist, a fervent Buddhist. But no, more likely what's to happen is that little Catholicism, you're disappointed with that, then you try a little Buddhism, and a little Islam or something, and you end up being nothing. This kind of relativism or just whatever, which is being jaded when it comes to the religious quest. We need to end up somewhere joyful, somewhere energizing and dynamic and so forth.
Yeah.
We need,
It's
we need to feed ourselves with.
well, hopefully the end result of all of this stuff is that we live a connected, joyful, nourishing, satisfying life, even with the presence of pain and suffering and bodies aging and aches and pains and things like that. Hopefully we end up in a place where we can give life and receive it. You said once that I said what's if you could simplify your most simple definition of what God is, you said it's the healthy circulation of love.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still resonate with that?
Oh yeah, that's a Trinity. That's Trinity.
Why did you say that? Why do you think that that's your simplest definition?
Well, first of all, because it defines God. It's the deepest essence of God. God is love. I mean, God is love in a deeper sense than God is justice, or even God is goodness. Because when you say love, that implies relationship.
Yeah.
And continual circulation of love means that to be God means to give of yourself. And I think that's the essence of divinity, is self-pouring out. Except that the self-pouring out to the other persons comes back to you as a self-pouring out on their part. So that's what it means to be God, is to pour out your being.
Yeah.
And therefore for us, to love is the first commandment, because that's our imitation of God. You want to obey God, you want to be like God, give yourself. So I think it's the simple. You can say many things about God. The uncreated cause, the first origin, the infinite, the boundless. All those are the Greek definitions from antiquity, the philosophical definitions.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, the one, absolute unity, etc. Those are philosophical definitions. But I think that the Jewish Christian definition of God as love, engaged, and God saw the affliction of his people Israel in Egypt and came down to rescue them. See, that's the nature of God. God isn't the ancients, the Greeks, and I think, as far as I understand it, also the Buddhists conceive of the divine. The more removed from the human and the earthly the divine is, the more divine it is. So it's almost like a mathematical abstraction. We want nothing but purity, nothing but spirit, nothing but unity, nothing but So, but each of those nothing buts puts God further and further away. Not that it's false, as far as it goes. The definition is not complete.
It's not as accessible to a poor little human being.
Right, not accessible at all, because so distant from us, so different from us. So that God has to move in our direction. But the uncaused cause, I mean...
It's not really teddy bear like.
What would make the uncaused cause move in our direction? In fact, God is called the immobile one, the unmoved one, the one who cannot move, because he's the foundation. But the foundation moves. It's as if Muhammad doesn't come to the mountain will come to Muhammad. It's like as if the mountain got up and walked down like in a Disney cartoon or something. The mountain's walking along.
Picks up its skirt.
Exactly. Well, it's exactly like that, and it totally reverses expectation. If a mountain is motivated with love, it picks up its skirt and comes down the mountain.
It's not a master sitting up on the throne just like making rules and limiting everything and punishing. It's a benevolent shepherd. It's a caring father or mother that's just wired to love and nourish.
And that is the divine infinite. That is the divine infinite, because it's unconditional and it will never change, and it doesn't depend on our merit, and it doesn't depend on moods. God cannot help being love. And this is why there's a beautiful hymn for Good Friday that says that Jesus is the God whose throne is the cross from which he reigns. The God who reigns from the cross as throne.
Hmm.
In other words, the cross is the painful execution of a criminal. And out of his love, Jesus, God, was willing to allow himself to be handed over, crucified, and to die, because that enabled him to spill himself out, like the blood pouring out of him. It enabled him, and so he rules by love. He doesn't rule by imposed force. He rules by self-giving. That's the kind of king of the universe that he is. So that's completely unexpected. Who could have come up with that?
Well, it's a divine logic, because
It's a divine logic.
It's not egoic logic.
God doesn't have an ego.
The centerless center.
But that's why he is supremely person. Because person is made for communion and love.
Yeah.
And what it means to be a perfect person is to love perfectly. And by definition, that's not a separate ego by which I keep some of myself for myself. Like some people say, Jesus had no private life. In other words, he didn't have the public life in which he's teaching and this and that, but then in the evening, I've had a hard day. In the sense of
Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. Turn to Netflix. No, in that sense, Jesus had no private life because he was nothing but self-giving. I mean, it seems exhausting to us and impossible, but he was always consistent. His word is what he was.
Total integrity of being and of self, and
An intention.
love the verb versus love the noun, or love the ideal. You just love
The verb in action. His life was love, the verb.
Exactly. In fact, I said that to the nuns. I said, for Jesus, to be is to love. That's as simple as I can put it. To be is to love.
And I go, with that in mind, I sometimes think that no matter how ugly and painful it can get here sometimes, that, what I said earlier is that hate is hurt love. So from God's eye view, even the worst atrocities here are some form of hurt love, so that we can't help but not be in the likeness of God, even when we choose to care about not caring.
And I think that because God knows that, because Jesus knows what you just said, that hatred is a form of hurt love, that's why he comes and makes himself human to be with us and suffer with us, because he knows that we are redeemable.
Yeah.
Hatred that acknowledges itself to be hurt love automatically puts itself out for healing.
Yeah.
But you have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
You can't insist, no, I'm hatred and nothing but hatred. And why am I hatred? Because I like it. No, you can't remain there. You have to acknowledge yourself as being hurt love, and therefore want to be healed from the hurt.
Yeah.
And there is healing from that hurt.
Yeah. That even just the vulnerability of admitting that is the healing commenced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it has to be done by a physician. It has to be done by another. It's the healing commenced, but it has to be carried through and tended for, and finally united with the physician as the ultimate goal of the full healing is to become one with God, not just going your merry way and playing the fiddle or something. I mean, the fullness of healing is union with God, because that's what we're made for. And as long as we're not united to God, we're hurting at some level.
Yeah, it's like unless the more surrendered we are to God, the more we are ourselves.
Period. Exactly. You want me to put some eye drops? Are your eyes itchy?
a little bit, but it's fine. But I was gonna say that. Thank you for that. But I actually have some eye drops because this happens because it's so dry.
Mine are very powerful.
Here.
I mean, you don't think it's allergy? Could it be allergy?
Yeah,
Mine is actually antihistaminic drops.
I have some of those too. But
Okay.
I want to try yours out. But it reminds me of what you say. Oh yes, that love implies other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
that. So love implies that there's an other. So it's not necessarily bad or wrong or untrue that there is separation in this world. Like
Absolutely.
you have your ego, I have my ego. This is how it works here. And ultimately, yes, we're all one and connected, but we have to acknowledge that there's a gap here.
Yeah, the healing of separation is not melting into one. No, the healing of separation is not unification in the sense of there's only one now. The healing of separation is communion. And communion always implies at least reciprocity.
Yeah.
A giver and a receiver.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
both are givers and
The healthy
receivers.
circulation of love. And
That's really important.
which is, we were talking psychological perspectives and, psychiatry and stuff, is that I don't think it's necessarily that the ego or the separate ego is the issue. It's the maladjusted ego.
Mhm.
The ego
Mhm.
that serves itself in this kind of like snake eating its own tail madness. It's like thinking it's going to nourish itself by eating itself or something.
Yeah.
Kind of like a scarcity or refusal to be affected by anything else out there that might be traumatic or
Or refusal to be nourished by anything other than itself.
so yes. And so a well-adapted ego could be a healthy servant of the benevolent master. But this like refusal to have the master because of post-traumatic stress, I think, is one of the
That's key. That's
one of the key
Yeah.
elements of it. It's like
No,
not
that-
all masters are going to abuse you and
That's
rape
right.
you and step over you, but we live as if that's truth.
We are made to serve. That's part of our human nature.
You gotta serve.
I know you got to serve somebody, but it's true. I mean, not only we're made for joy, but we're made for freedom. But the how we acquire that joy and that freedom is by willingly serving.
Yeah.
That's how we pour ourselves out.
Yeah.
We have to be like our model, like the divine model in human form is service.
Yeah.
And so
If you don't garden, there's no garden.
exactly.
There's no fruits if you
No,
don't.
I'm very happy, Alexis, with your whole spiritual evolution is marvelous. It really is marvelous. Because I really feel, I mean, what I said at the end, that we have the same longings and we see the same finality, even though we've gotten to it in somewhat different ways and we use somewhat different language. But I think we've both continued to evolve and helped each other in that evolution.
For
And
sure.
And that's maybe the best form of communion is exactly that. The best way of helping one another is respecting differences but respecting differences and using the differences as an energy to move forward together.
Yeah. It's a synergy.
Yeah.
It's a synergy.
Yep.
And I've always admired I've felt a lot that I've kind of floundered in lostness and seeking and then addiction to seeking and making an identity out of being a seeker, but never like the existential satisfaction, like never getting to a place where you feel like you can rest and relax and permission to be yourself, permission to just be imperfect, that existential satisfaction. So I've been floundering in all of these, just trying on different views, different world
But
views.
that's been part of it. That's been part of the search.
That's been part of it. That's me like wandering the desert kind of thing. But what I love about you, there's a lot of different things about your approach, but it's the focus in one realm to like ridiculous depths. 37 years just of just that, but starting in Cuba with your, looking up the Protestant Bible by, and then getting in trouble for. I mean, you've been on this for your whole life.
That's true, and it's amazing. I don't even know why I did it. I mean, I don't even know why I did it. What awakened? How on earth did I know that a Bible existed? They never talk about the Bible. How did I know that a Bible existed?
Just like gleaming in a window.
I guess there was no Bible in my house or in my school. There was no Bible.
You're just called. That's
It's
pursuing in a head allurement.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Pursuing.
It's amazing, and how it's persisted and persisted and persisted.
Yeah, it's like the bottomless gift of joy and curiosity and inspiration.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that you look back and you say, by golly, God has been with me.
Yeah.
God has been with me. Very often, I mean, even though I've always been religious, I've never been conscious of it in that way. Even though I've always had a sense of the presence of God that people say, that's never been absent from me. Always sensed the divine is near. There's a presence, a presence.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never heard anything or seen any vision. No, but it's just, how can people say that there is no God? I find that the most absurd thing out of my experience. Not arguments, but just a sense of.
Yeah.
A sense of.
Yeah.
And if you hang on to that, that'll take you a long way if you're faithful to that.
Yeah. And that, I think, to be honest and humble yet acknowledging the truth of the matter is that God has been really good to both of us. The presence and the voice of God is with us. God dwells within us in a way that, yes, God is everyone, everything, the likeness. We are all children of God. Yes. And some beings have a more, face-to-face living relationship, and I'm really grateful for that, because this is what I realized at one point, even when it was the darkest times of my life and I was just shunning God and making fun of God and saying, get off me, like, I don't agree, I don't like your design.
That's relating.
That's relationship. But I didn't realize that till many years later. I was like, even when I was atheist, I believed in God. Like, I was wrestling with God even when I was choosing to not believe in God. And it's like, that's how present God is, that I'm literally wrestling with God. Yeah, I couldn't get away. And in some ways, that can drive you insane.
Of course.
It was Moses, who everyone thought was a nut job, right? Because he was talking to burning bushes. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yes,
And
yes,
so
yes.
That kind of privilege can be quite destructive to a normal life, or to the perspective of other people on your what would you say, your when you don't conform, like an unconformed life, it can make your life difficult.
Of course.
You've done really well, especially where you've arrived. I don't know, I would say now you've done really well with it, because literally your business, your product is sharing the living word.
That's true, but it has happened exactly as I described it. In other words, it's not that I sat down and figured out a strategy or anything. It was just, yes,
inspired action,
attuned.
Yeah,
I'm attuned. I was open. I was searching, and these things came to me. They were given
gifts.
They were given. I mean, the way that this book originated. Alexei, I look at the 4 volumes together and I say, I can't believe that this happened. How did this happen? I still don't understand. No, it's amazing. Because I don't consider myself really capable of doing this. I'm not a patient person. I'm not a steady person. I'm largely lazy. I would rather do things that give me some kind of pleasure, like watching movies or reading, romances. Listening to sensual music, eating, drinking. These are the things that I do as first choice. Sitting down and letter by letter, that's not me exactly. I mean, it's.
But you couldn't help yourself.
No, I couldn't. I feel kind of used or something.
God used you.
Yeah, but in a weird way, and over a period of 37 years, and publishing history It took 37 years to write the first volume, but the four volumes. But the first one, volume 1, was only published in 1996, which is 25 years ago. So the publication history between volume 1 and volume 4 it's a quarter century. 25 years, 96 to 2021, which is a heck of a long time.
Yeah.
So I have grown old writing this. This is my kind of testament, my spiritual diary. If you want,
sort of legacy, but
yeah,
you have a lot more content than this. You know, the Way of the Disciple.
Yeah, those are small books. Way of the Disciple, the Love Sacred Order.
Love Sacred Order.
That's a book that I really love. Love Sacred Order.
Oh, okay.
It's about 4 loves, 4 different kinds of love.
I think I've read this one.
Have you?
I think so.
It's not a very big book. It's about 120 pages or something.
Did it already exist in about 2005?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Those are old books from the 80s and 90s.
You know, a confession about these books is I haven't read them, and I've read excerpts.
Yeah.
And it pains me to say this a little bit, but, buddy,
Hey. Hi.
Come, buddy.
He's looking at Lydia and he's looking back.
Come, buddy. Come here. Hey, come. It pains me to say, but maybe one day we're not both on this earth.
Yeah, that will come.
And if and when that happens, because I don't know the divine plan, but if that happens, I want to have these books to help me with my grief. And so there's part of me that doesn't want to read them until
I see what you mean.
If you're not here, so that I can continue to commune through your books.
Okay. Well, that'll keep you busy for a while.
Exactly.
It'll fill up many an empty night.
Exactly.
That's fine. You don't have to read them. You know, like if you want, you can read like my introduction or there's a thing in here that I did that I like a lot. I call it the Prelude. There's a prelude and there's an introduction. The introduction is about this word paradosis. I really go to town on that in the introduction. The handing over, the tradition.
Yeah.
And so I speak about the Eucharist and about all the senses of that word I speak of. So you might want to read that, which is like 20 pages.
Yeah.
And then the prelude is like, prelude literally means foreplay. What? Is I'm used to being on table?
No. I just like to see like what a dog does when you put them in a situation where they're usually told not to.
Oh.
My mom and dad let him up on the picnic table whenever they go on a picnic.
And when we go to when we've gone to the park, he just jumps on the table with all the food as if like it's totally normal.
But he wouldn't be able to jump down from here. It's a little too high, no?
But he might hurt his foot.
He's probably waiting for me or you to get him off.
He's waiting for instruction.
He could hurt his back or his foot or something. It's a little too high.
Are you ready for Hot Monk?
I'm ready whenever I put pants on.
Okay. I need to like rinse my body off because I was really hot in this.
Go rinse.
No, I'm literally gonna get the hose. I'm gonna water the garden and water myself.
With your clothes on?
No, I'll take this off.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, but the Prelude. Do you want to finish that thought?
Well, you might, if you want to read anything, without getting into the text itself, the Prelude and the introduction, if you want.
Okay, okay.
Because
I'm not married to that as a commitment, for the record.
Oh no.
I may start to read them.
What you said before. Okay.
Yeah, but that's my present thing. Is like I really. Yeah, because
and by the way, these books, I probably should have said something. One can read from page 1 and go on, but precisely because they're about different parts of the gospel, you could pick. You could pick the refusal of joy in volume 3, chapter 22, and just go to that. and read
That's true.
10 or 15 pages
That's true.
there.
That's true.
And then you can read it again.
Yeah, that's
later.
true. Because
You don't have to read
usually
from.
think like because that's how I usually read a book. It's
Yeah.
like if I'm going to read a book, I fully commit to it because I don't want to have half the
Yeah.
satisfaction
Yeah.
of it or the.
But these books, by the nature of it, it's not like reading a novel. You don't have to start in chapter 3 of a novel. But these books, they follow line by line the gospel. And you know how the gospel is put together? It's like episodes. And each episode, I mean, it's certainly connected to the others, but you can lift it out also and just look at that.
Yeah, it can. I forget. There's a word for it when something can like exist on its own. It's like you can watch an episode of a Netflix series that
Yeah.
each episode stands on its own.
Stands on its own. Yes,
Yet is
yes.
connected.
Exactly. And this book is very much like that.
Okay.
And I often say that because when you say, well, this book is almost 800 pages, I go, whoa, I'll never get through that. Well, but you can read 10. You can open up in any section that begins here. And I usually make a little bridge with what's gone before and then, but
Cohesive.
but you don't have to.
Okay, well that's good to know. I'll start taking bite sizes.
Yeah, I'm glad you have them.
Plus, you are this book, and I get to commune with you. So I'd rather be talking to you than through your book.
I get it. I
Yeah.
understand.
You are that word.
Yeah, you got the author, man. Other people just have the paper.
I'm always VIP backstage with Simeon Monk.
That's right. Other people just have the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Bueno, ¿tú tienes calor?
sí,
Sí, ¿verdad?
sí. Voy a poner el ventilador y me voy a quitar este hábito. A ver, mi hijo, venga con papá. Venga con abuelo. Ven, papá. Sí. Ven.
That buddy and the Simeon, two monkeys.
Qué rico hueles. Te
¿Verdad?
bañaron hace un par de días, yo creo.
Sí, la mamá lo cuida bien.
Sí, huele a jabón. todavía. Oye, está pesadito, este perro come bien.
Yeah, he's
Yeah, he's chunky.
he's got some love handles on him.
He's small, but he's chunky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mi hijo.
He's got that derpy look.
What do you call it? Derby?
Derp.
Derpy.
Derpy.
Derp.
Have you heard the word derp?
No.
It's like another way of saying like you look so goofy or
Goofy.
silly or derpy.
Derpy.
So we say derp all the time.
I was wondering, it says, it sounds like Derby, like the Kentucky Derby or something, but it's derpy.
Derp. Yeah, derp, because Lydia used to call him, like, he looked like, she used to say something like, you look so stupid, or like she was saying a word that was like kind of violent to my soul every time she called Buddy that. And then we were trying to get at the heart of what she meant. And then we got to, oh, he looks derpy.
Derpy.
And derpy has less of a
Is that
aggressive.
It's a new word.
I don't know. Well, I think derp is